Wow, that's what a Torpedo Corvette should be doing. Although maybe not that big a ship, that's a Nero's ship, but fire everything. That's what the Corvette should be doing, running in, going in close, firing off their torpedoes. Well, that's what I think it should be happening anyway, but we'll talk about that a little bit in a while. So this is going to be a video about the Stellaris combat rebalancing and other experiments that have been happening over the summer. I do apologise for my voice, it's a little bit croaky, a little bit of a cold at the moment, but I wanted to do this video anyway because I do enjoy making these videos. So they're looking to increase the base hull points of ships, so maybe that's to make the battles last longer, so that you don't instantly die or get one-shotted with the alpha strike. So I'm not sure that, but we'll have to wait and see. Make combat computers respect their desired range more, so that'll be great if the combat computers actually work and the battleships stay at their 120, 150 range, not charge into their small weapons range if you got them, and carriers actually stay out of combat range and things like that, so they can actually make them stay at their proper range they're meant to. Add ship role button for the ship designer that builds a ship that fulfills that role, so an automatic build for that ship design. They're adding artillery, brawler, carrier, gunship, screen, torpedo, corvette. So artillery ships should be like this. Brawler should be like this. Their extreme range, high DPS weapons. Then we have the carrier, and hopefully the carrier will work something like this. Then we got the gunship. Gunship, many medium-sized weapons, and hopefully it works a bit like this ship. Then we got screen ships with point defense, intercept smaller craft. Imagine they're going to be probably some type of corvettes, destroyers like we normally do. And then you got torpedo corvettes, extreme range, deadly to large ships. So we'll talk about it in a little bit.
Fire everything!
So what's this talk about? So back in Stellaris Dev Diary 257, they talked about the tradition of the summertime experimentation. So Iggy's relic rebalancing work is going into the 3.5 Fornex update, which we've seen dev diaries on, and that's being talked about a lot, as are the species pack achievements and the very beginning of Muzzin's accessibility work. So we've read about that on the forums and the dev diaries, and that'll be coming in the update. I think it's the 20th or 21st. For some people. Today we'll be talking about the combat rebalance experiments and Alfred's work on Ascension perks. So I'm only going to talk about the combat rebalancing, but a little bit on the Ascension work. I think that'll change a lot before it reaches release. So both of these are far earlier in development, so a lot will change before it reaches public release. Everything we'll be discussing is very early, subject to change, all those caveats. It might come out in the 3.6 Orion update, or it might be a little bit longer than that, it might be 3.7. So when they started talking about the combat rebalancing, they had to decide what was more important and what is not. So they decided to shake up the meta and improve the overall space combat while maintaining a limited scope. Provide benefits to having mixed fleets rather than the uni-hull, like everyone builds the battleships endgame with the long-range weapons and pretty much nothing else, at least in single player. And multiplayer is a little bit different. You've still got the high evasion destroyers, which lots of people build, the cruisers, which have the high disengagement chance with your edicts and stuff you can run with hit and run and some other things, and you can basically build them and not many die, they retreat, and you can basically your production increases more than your losses, and you just snowball with cruisers. So there are some caveats there, but that's all going to change with these changes they're going to be introducing. So they don't want to spend much time or resources on changing the 3D assets. So the goals are intended to be tightly focused on fleet composition, balance changes. This isn't supposed to be a massive rewrite of how fleet combat works. Changes to war exhaustion, wars in general, ground combat, invasions are out of scope. So there's nothing going to be changing to those areas, ground combat, so don't expect any changes for that. It's mainly just a rebalance of how combat works rather than a complete redesign. So, and that's what they've been doing over the summer. So the problems is Alpha Strike, battleships come in, fire first, or your cruisers with long-range weapons, and first volley decimates the enemy fleet. And in multiplayer, people try and use, transport ships and stuff, and try to tank that Alpha Strike, and then get their Alpha Strike in, and basically the first person to get Alpha Strike in wins the battle, wins the war around that 30-35 year period, and that's it, game over for the other person. Most likely, some skilled players can come back from that. Ships like destroyers and cruisers are never really used that much. So cruisers are used in destroyers in multiplayer, but not in single player so much. Everyone goes for the battleships. Point defense as well. The destroyer isn't very valuable. So battleships can pretty much do everything a cruiser can do, but better. They're bringing in missiles are now an S-slot artillery weapon with extreme range. Swarmer missiles and M-slot weapons. They adjust the DPS, so missiles are going to be really long-range artillery now, which is what they should be. That's how things have been, even in the world we live in now. Autocannons will be the brawler weapons with very short range, much higher DPS. I think that's like the Pegasus battle I just showed before. Charge in, brawler weapons, every gun firing. They've got add armor hardening to shields, armor hardening and hardening to shields, stats that can counter armor and shield penetration. So that's just to make armor and shields a bit more effective, and you can't just counter them with direct weapons. They are going to have a bit more, depth to them, so they don't whittle away so quickly. Strike craft no longer intercept missiles or torpedoes, but do continue to intercept on the strike craft. Not so sure about that, because even in our world we have fighter jets that intercept missiles, and you see it all through sci-fi, fighters intercepting missiles and torpedoes and stuff. So I'm not sure about that. That I hope to be in the beta testing they're going to be doing, which we'll be able to do probably in the next few months for a lot of this stuff. So test that out, because we don't want strike craft to be nerfed too much. Point defense and flak are going to be more strongly typed against their preferred targets. Well, that'll be good. So hopefully point defenses work a little bit better. So they tried to make a few changes. Torpedoes are now very short range weapons that deal multiplicative damage based on the target size. Adjust for DPS ×5 versus battleships. Wow, that's just crazy. So torpedoes are going to be short range now, not the long range like we've got the neutron launchers and other weapons like that. Energy torpedoes are now G-slot weapons with a minimum range. They also deal multiplicative damage based on their target size, adjusted DPS. So they're going to be G-slot now, not your large slot weapons. So that's going to change the ship designs up a fair bit. Torpedo Corvettes will be their own ship class with higher hull, much slower speed and evasion than regular Corvettes, added to torpedo combat computers. So that's different. That increases explosive damage and adds charge behavior. Okay, so they're going to be high hull, charge in, fire off their volley, wipe out those big ships, battleships. Looks like they're going to need protection, screening and things like that, so the other ships are going to have to protect them. So this is absolutely to shake things up. Mixed fleets are more rewarding because each ship class has a valuable service it provides. Corvettes have high evasion, are fast and are good at hunting torpedo corvettes or artillery battleships and cruisers. Torpedo corvettes threaten large ships if they are not handled and can switch to using neutron launchers, though this makes them much more vulnerable than regular corvettes. They can't be left on their own since they're pretty defenses, and that's what we're just talking about. So they're going to need protection. The other corvettes and destroyers are going to hunt them down. So they're going to have a really good balanced fleet to keep your torpedo corvette safe, get in there and do their job. What's next? So still to do includes a review of how widespread tracking bonuses are. It'd be nice for destroyers to have a more noticeable edge when hunting corvettes or other types. That would be good. I'd like to see that destroyers become the hunters, like wolves of the galaxy. We do need to look at repeatables and how they affect everything, combat as a whole. We have a design for major changes just to disengagement, but I'm not sure we'll have time to do that for Ryan. Okay, so there might be changing disengagement a bit. Experimenting with ship costs or fleet sizes may also happen. There are too many fleets in the mid to late game Stellaris and doom stacking the only way to retain one's sanity. Yeah, so that's right. There's so many fleets. You know, you got 1-2 million fleet power, and you've got little dozens of these fleets running around with all the battleships and stuff. It does get a bit hard to micro it all. So and then we have the Ascension experiments they're working on. So you've got your standard psionic, genetic, synthetic evolution instead of the synthetic age ascensions that we've got at the moment. It looks like the main changes are to genetic and cybernetic ascension. I'm not going to talk too much about this because I've got a sore throat, but you can read it yourself, and I think there's going to be quite a few changes in this before it reaches us releases. But it looks like they're making genetic ascension available to regular empires and hive minds, which is really good. Cybernetic will be available to regular empires, hive minds, and driven assimilators. Wow, that's really, really good. So if driven assimilators and cybernetic with the Ascension bug, you can play like this now.
We are the Borg. Lower your shields and surrender your ships. We will add your biological and technological distinctiveness to our own. Your culture will adapt to service us. Resistance is futile.
Synthetic Ascension available to regular empires and machine intelligences. Okay, so it looks like they're making these traditions more widespread and they can affect more play types, which is really good. The Ascension traditions include benefits of the previous Ascension paths with a few adjustments. Empires will gradually grow their paths rather than suddenly undergoing changes. Okay, that's pretty good. So it looks like you're going to have a few things to do, like technologies or some situations or missions you have to do, and to gradually get your total ascension done. So rather than just be, you know, I've done this, click, bang, your whole empire's changed in a few days or a few months. It should be gradual over many, many years. So that would probably be better. So, but they still need to, well, they've got just old empires have a broader selection of ascension paths too, so that's good. The machine empire is finally getting a bit of love. However, everything shown here is still experimental. Yep, so that'll be based on the beta and the feedback. I'll put up the pictures of the various ascension paths, but I'm not going to talk too much about them because they're going to be subject to change. So you guys can read them and have a look at them yourselves and see if they're going to be good or not, and make some comments and make your own decisions on what's good and what's not, and make your feedback seen in the beta. So there's a genetic one now. You can pause and have a good read through this stuff. You've got cybernetic up there. There's fair few changes now. The driven assimilators that be included in that. That's great. That's really good. It's going to be crazy. Alright, so I think that's about it. So I think the changes are really great. I'm really looking forward to playing this or testing this out in the beta. It's really going to shake up the meta for all your ship builds and designs, and having to build actually multiple types of ships, just not having destroyers or cruisers in your multiplayer, and that's if you go and rush and wipe out the enemy fleet. You're actually going to have a combination of ships and probably technologies, and it's going to make things a lot more difficult, and people are going to come up with more weird and wild ways to outfox the other guy, and what's the meta and what's the build, and with the changes in toxoids and all the tradition changes and civics and traits, and it's really going to change things up a lot. So if you like this video, hit that like button, subscribe to videos. I am going to be working a lot on Stellaris over the next few months, and I'll also be playing Victoria 3 a lot once it's released. So if you like Victoria 3, I love Victoria 2 and the original Victoria. So I'll be playing a lot of these videos, or making a lot of these videos. So if you want to get involved in that, subscribe to this channel, and I'll try and make a lot of videos. There are a few I've put up already, and I'm trying to improve the video qualities and that as I learn things and tweak things and learn mistakes and make things a little bit better. So things will improve over time, hopefully. My voice will improve a little bit too. So thanks for watching, and yeah, hit that like button and that subscribe button. See you next time.